The Great Depression was a period of immense suffering and economic turmoil. It left an indelible mark on the United States and the world. Beginning in 1929, the Depression would last for a decade, challenging the very fabric of society. Millions faced unemployment, poverty, and hunger. The global economy ground to a halt, and the effects were felt far and wide. The Great Depression serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of economic systems and the importance of social safety nets. The Roaring Twenties, a time of prosperity and optimism, came to a dramatic end with the stock market crash of October 1929. This era, often characterized by jazz music, flapper dresses, and a booming economy, seemed unstoppable. People were living lavishly, and the stock market was seen as a golden ticket to wealth. The streets were filled with the hustle and bustle of a society that believed the good times would never end. On Black Tuesday, October 29th, the market plummeted, wiping out billions of dollars in value. The day started with a sense of unease, but as the hours passed, panic set in. Investors watched in horror as their fortunes evaporated before their eyes. The once bustling trading floors turned into scenes of chaos and despair. Panic selling gripped investors as stock prices reached unsustainably low levels. The frenzy to sell only exacerbated the situation, driving prices down even further. People who had invested their life savings were left with nothing. The psychological impact was immense, as the dream of easy wealth turned into a nightmare of financial ruin. The crash was the culmination of years of speculation and risky investing. Throughout the 1920s, the stock market had been fueled by a speculative bubble. Investors were buying stocks not based on the company's actual performance, but on the belief that prices would keep rising. This speculative mania created an unsustainable financial environment. Many Americans had invested heavily in the stock market, hoping to get rich quickly. The allure of quick profits drew in people from all walks of life. From small-time investors to wealthy businessmen, everyone wanted a piece of the action. Newspapers and radio broadcasts were filled with stories of ordinary people striking it rich overnight. However, much of this investment was done on margin, meaning investors borrowed heavily to buy stocks. This practice allowed people to buy more stock than they could afford, amplifying their potential gains but also their potential losses. When the market crashed, those who had borrowed to invest found themselves in dire straits. When prices fell, they were unable to repay their loans, leading to a cascade of selling. The forced liquidation of stocks to cover debts created a downward spiral, further driving down prices. Banks that had lent money for stock purchases also faced massive losses, leading to a broader financial crisis. The crash exposed the dangers of unregulated markets and the risks associated with excessive speculation. It became clear that the financial system was built on a fragile foundation. The lack of oversight and regulation allowed risky behaviors to flourish, ultimately leading to disaster. It marked the beginning of a long and painful economic downturn. The Great Depression that followed saw widespread unemployment, poverty, and suffering. Businesses closed, banks failed, and millions of people were left destitute. The crash of '29 was not just a financial catastrophe. It was a profound social and economic upheaval that reshaped the world for years to come. The Great Depression was not confined to the United States. It quickly spread across the globe, impacting countries on every continent. The interconnected nature of the global economy meant that the collapse of the American market had a ripple effect worldwide. International trade plummeted as nations sought to protect their own economies. European nations, still recovering from World War I, were particularly hard hit. Germany, burdened by war reparations, faced hyperinflation and economic collapse. Great Britain, once a global financial powerhouse, was forced to abandon the gold standard. The Depression led to political instability and social unrest in many parts of the world, contributing to the rise of extremist ideologies. The Great Depression brought about widespread hardship and suffering. Millions of Americans lost their jobs as businesses failed and factories closed. Unemployment soared to unprecedented levels, reaching 25% by 1933. Families struggled to put food on the table, and breadlines became a common sight in cities across the country. The loss of income and savings led to a sharp decline in living standards. Many families were evicted from their homes, forced to live in shantytowns known as Hoovervilles. Children went hungry and malnutrition became a serious problem. The psychological toll of the Depression was immense, leading to despair, hopelessness, and a loss of faith in the American dream. The Great Plains region of the United States faced a double blow during the 1930s. A severe drought coupled with poor farming practices led to the Dust Bowl, an ecological disaster of unprecedented proportions. Strong winds swept across the parched land, creating massive dust storms that blackened the sky and buried entire towns. The Dust Bowl forced thousands of families known as Okies to flee their homes in search of work and a better life. Many migrated westward to California, only to face competition for scarce jobs and discrimination. The Dust Bowl highlighted the importance of soil conservation and the devastating impact of environmental degradation. Section 6. A New Deal emerges. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office as President of the United States, promising a new deal for the American people. Roosevelt's New Deal was a series of programs and reforms designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform to the battered economy. Recognizing the severity of the crisis, Roosevelt acted swiftly to address the needs of the unemployed, provide support for farmers, and restore confidence in the banking system. The New Deal marked a turning point in American history, expanding the role of the federal government in the lives of its citizens. Section 7. The Alphabet Soup of Progress, the New Deal. A series of programs and projects instituted during the Great Depression by President Franklin D. Roosevelt encompassed a wide range of initiatives. These programs were often referred to as alphabet soup due to their numerous acronyms. Each program aimed to address different aspects of the economic crisis, providing relief, recovery, and reform to a nation in desperate need. One of the most notable programs was the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC. This initiative provided jobs for young men focusing on conservation and reforestation projects. These men planted trees, built flood barriers, fought forest fires, and maintained forest roads and trails. The CCC not only helped to preserve the nation's natural resources, but also provided a sense of purpose and income for thousands of young men. Another significant program was the Works Progress Administration, or WPA. This program employed millions of Americans in various infrastructure projects. Workers built roads, bridges, schools, and public buildings, leaving a lasting legacy on the nation's landscape. The WPA also supported the arts, employing artists, musicians, and writers to create public works of art, perform concerts, and write guidebooks. The Social Security Act was another cornerstone of the New Deal. It established a system of old age pensions, unemployment insurance, and aid to dependent children. This act provided a safety net for the elderly, the unemployed, and families in need, ensuring that they had some financial security during tough times. These programs collectively provided much-needed relief to millions of Americans. They put people back to work, restored hope, and provided a safety net for the most vulnerable. The New Deal's impact was profound, reshaping the American economy and society in ways that are still felt today. In addition to job creation and social welfare programs, the New Deal also introduced important financial reforms. One such reform was the creation of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC. This institution insured bank deposits, restoring public confidence in the banking system and preventing bank runs. Another critical reform was the establishment of the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. This agency was tasked with regulating the stock market, ensuring transparency, and protecting investors from fraudulent practices. These financial reforms helped to stabilize the economy and prevent future economic crises. The New Deal's alphabet soup of programs and reforms not only addressed the immediate needs of the Great Depression, but also laid the groundwork for a more resilient and equitable society. Through a combination of job creation, social welfare, and financial regulation, the New Deal helped to lift the nation out of despair and set it on a path to recovery and progress. Section 8. The slow climb to recovery. The road to recovery from the Great Depression was long and arduous. While the New Deal provided some relief, it did not end the Depression. The economy experienced ups and downs throughout the 1930s, and unemployment remained high. It was not until the outbreak of World War II that the United States fully emerged from the economic abyss. The massive government spending associated with the war effort stimulated industrial production and created millions of jobs. The war also led to technological advancements and increased global demand for American goods, further boosting the economy. Section 9. Echoes of the Past. The Great Depression left an enduring legacy on the United States and the world. It was a time of unprecedented economic hardship, where millions of people found themselves out of work and struggling to make ends meet. Breadlines and soup kitchens became common sights in cities across the nation, as families did whatever they could to survive. It demonstrated the devastating consequences of economic instability and the importance of government intervention in times of crisis. Bank runs were a frequent occurrence, with people rushing to withdraw their savings, fearing the collapse of financial institutions. The sight of closed banks and the loss of personal savings left a lasting impact on the collective psyche of the nation. The New Deal, while not without its critics, established a precedent for social welfare programs and government regulation of the economy. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's ambitious series of programs aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform to a nation in despair. The Works Progress Administration, WPA, put millions to work on public projects, while Social Security provided a safety net for the elderly and unemployed. The lessons learned from the Great Depression continue to shape economic policies today. Economists and policymakers study this period to understand the causes and effects of economic downturns, striving to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. The importance of regulatory oversight and proactive measures cannot be overstated. Central banks and governments strive to maintain economic stability and prevent future crises. The Federal Reserve, established to manage the nation's monetary policy, plays a crucial role in this effort. By adjusting interest rates and regulating the money supply, it aims to foster economic growth while keeping inflation in check. The Great Depression serves as a stark reminder of the importance of financial responsibility, social safety nets, and the need for international cooperation to address global economic challenges. Nations around the world have learned that economic stability is not just a domestic issue, but a global one. International economic conferences and agreements seek to foster cooperation and prevent the kind of widespread suffering seen during the 1930s. The echoes of the past continue to inform our present and guide our future.